Narito ang programang totoong totoo, Tambayan sa DWIZ. Programang magliliwanag ng ilang mahahalagang mga issue. Tambayan sa DWIZ. At ngayon, narito na sila upang maghatid ng saya sa bawat Pilipino. Sa programang Tambayan sa DWIZ.
Gandang tanghali, welcome to Tambayan. Kasama si Hintilan, Attorney Awesome Ahmed Paglinawan.
Yes.
Yes, that's it. That's your intro, yes.
Yes.
Ako po si Trixie Cruz Angeles.
Whoa!
Thank you. It's 95 days before Christmas.
Why do we count this thing?
I don't know. It's on my monitor. Okay. TWIZ text line 0918-350-2378. Ulitin po natin 0918-350-2378. We're supposed to have a guest. Tinatawagan na po ngayon. Because today is the 21st of September.
Do you remember?
Exactly. We're trying to do that.
Na September.
We're trying our best.
Sino ba yung guest natin? Really? Kakanta siya niyan? Sino?
Okay.
Sino? Si Marco? Si
We're getting on the phone former Senator Juan Ponce Enrile.
Oh, sakto. Marunong yan si Johnny yan.
Yes.
Do you
If there's
remember?
anybody who understands or who knows the September song. If anybody understands the idea or even the concept, the doctrines of martial law, it would be the former senator who was the one who drafted the original, ano ba yun?
Declaration.
PD ba siya? Presidential decree? Presidential, declaration.
Ayan na siya.
1081.
1081.
Magandang tanghali, Senator Enrile, are you on the line?
Thank you very much, Trixie.
Okay.
Magandang tanghali.
Kasama ko rin po si Attorney Ahmed Paglinawan, Senator.
Magandang tanghali po, Senator.
Sino?
Si Ahmed po, Paglinawan. He's...
sige na.
Yes, sir. Sir, as our guest today, we wanted to, because today is the 21st of September, if you don't mind, we'd like to ask you, kwentuhan nyo naman po kami, ano yung events, for instance, that led to the declaration of martial law in 1972. I understand most of our historians put it at your ambush. So, ano po yung nangyari doon?
Actually, President Marcos, after he won his second term in 1969,
yes.
He asked me to study the possibility of, or rather, he asked me to study his power under his commander-in-chief role under the Constitution.
Okay.
So when he asked me that, I knew that he was planning to do something.
Okay.
There is something wrong with your line. There is an interference. Can you fix it?
Paki-check yung linya, please.
There is merong nagsasabi.
Yes, sir. Sige, we're checking our line.
Nag-e-echo eh. Hindi ko...
nag-e-echo.
I cannot...
hindi nga dapat nag-e-echo eh. Could we call you back, sir, para mawala yung echo?
Okay.
Sige, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So, ano pala?
Interesting yan, Commander-in-Chief
1969.
powers yan. So, as early as 1969,
Nanalo
that was the
si
election.
President Marcos doon.
The first term was 1965.
Ang kanyang vice president ay si Lopez.
Yes, in 1969 si Lopez yung
Yes,
tinakbo niya.
I think
ito yung 1 million
din.
votes ni Imelda. Yung sinasabi ni President Marcos that the reason he won for re-election was because Mrs. Marcos campaigned really hard for him and she's supposed to be responsible for 1 million votes. So, tsaka these are heady days. They're very, very popular. They're a very popular couple. They were young, they were dynamic. President Marcos was brilliant. Yun
Kasi
yung
nagsisimula na rin si Ninoy Aquino sa kanyang katarantaduhan nitong mga panahon to. O hindi pa?
Oo, because he was looking towards the presidency
At the Senate.
after Marcos.
Okay.
Kasi diba 2 terms si Marcos, so it was supposed to be, so 1965 was the first term, the second term was supposed to end ng 1973. Tama? 4 years. So, it was supposed to end in 1973. He declared martial law in 1972. So significant yung sinasabi ni Senator Enrile dito na he was looking at it under the Commander-in-Chief powers. So, kasi yung Commander-in-Chief powers he was looking for a way to extend his term. Or at least, yun yung suspecha ni Senator Enrile. Pero he was looking at it wrong.
Maybe not extending his term, but doing something, seeing that there is an emergent problem. Kasi, ang power ng Commander-in-Chief is what? Calling out.
Yes.
Diba? Calling out not only the armed forces but also the people. The civilian citizens.
Yes.
To fight. Nandiyan na yata si Senator.
Okay na po. Senator, can you hear us now?
Mahina eh.
Mahina naman.
Mahina yung sound.
Paano yung volume, guys? Ako yung lalapit sa mic.
Ilapit tayo sa mic.
Okay, yes sir. Okay, can you hear us now better?
Hello, ma'am.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Masyadong mahina pa din, sir. Okay, sige. While we're getting that, habang chine-check ng technical team natin, Commander-in-Chief powers, but later on, ito Senator Enrile who pointed it out that it would be, palapit na lang daw po ako sa mic. Okay. Kami ang lalapit sa mic. Sige, paki-check niyo yung audio before we bring him back on air so he's not, so he can hear us. Guys, okay, thank you.
Wala pa naman sinabi si Senator Enrile about the motivation. Ang sinabi niya lang na he asked the senator about the possibility of looking into the powers. Nandiyan na yata sila.
Okay na po.
Ma'am, pataas na lang po ng voice na lang, ma'am. Para
sige, lalakasan namin.
Dinig niya.
Okay, yes sir. Sorry po. My fault. My bad. Thank you.
Okay po.
Salamat.
Bye. Senator, you're back on the air. We can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
I have a problem with my hearing, so I could not hear you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll just raise the volume.
Use the cell phone. It's better.
Okay. Cell phone daw uli. Okay.
Cell phone, so, okay. We will call you on cell phone.
We'll call back on the cell phone para mas malakas. Guys, thank you.
Okay.
Sige, Senator. We'll take care of that.
Okay. Wala pa namang sinabi si Senator Enrile kung ano yung motivation ni Marcos.
Wala naman.
Just ask the Senator kung ano ang nakikita mo dyan sa powers ng Presidente bilang Commander-in-Chief. Okay. But pwede tayong mag-speculate for now. Bakit kung gusto mong i-extend lang yung term mo, dyan ka titingin sa military powers ng Presidente. Marami namang paraan.
Okay.
Di ba? One is to amend the Constitution, which he had already done earlier.
Hindi pa. 1969, 1973 yung Constitutional Convention.
Which is also he was also going to do. Di ba? Bakit martial law? Siguro may nakikita nga talaga siyang problema na merong encroachment into the right of the president, of the powers of the president, or the safety of the country. At ang namin ni JP dyan habang iniisip namin doon ng husto is kasi ito rin yung panahon na nagkaroon ng crunch sa Southeast Asia.
Okay.
Nagkaroon ng economic crunch. At isa sa mga biktima dyan ay itong mga media na sobrang laki na ng utang sa mga foreign na Okay,
Senator, can you hear us now?
No, there's somebody talking about something that happened in Southeast Asia. What's that?
Southeast Asia.
Ako yun.
Si Attorney Ahmed po.
Pinag-isipan namin ni JP.
We were discussing something else, but you're back on the line. Could you continue po yung kwento nyo?
Yeah, okay. In 1969, after the election for his second term, President Marcos asked me to study his commander-in-chief powers. And I knew that he was talking about the powers under the commander-in-chief provision of the Constitution of 1935. So we did study it. I was Secretary of Justice at the time. The two persons that joined me in making the study was the late Efren Plana, who became a Justice of the Supreme Court, and Minerva Gonzaga Reyes later on, who also became Supreme Court Justice. Both were magna cum laude from UP.
Yes, sir.
We prepared a volume containing our study about martial law. So that was 1969. In 1972, he decided to use it. And so on September 21, 1972, actually it was September 22nd,
22.
there was a special session of Congress, and we agreed that he will proclaim it on the 21st of September, but the session was of Congress was going on. So on that Saturday after the 21st, he decided to proclaim martial law. For a while, he was hesitating, and but finally, all the people were already dispersed and deployed. I told him, Mr. President, if we are not going to do it now, we better call it off because it might blow on our faces. So finally, at 5 o'clock, Roland Patugalan, his aide, went to my office in the Defense Department. It was about 5:30, I think, and brought to me the documents that I prepared alone with the aid of Simplicio Tagyam, his private secretary. So after I went over the documents, I knew that it was complete. I called the General Staff of the Armed Forces and convened them in Camp Aguinaldo. And I told them that the effort to declare martial law in the country will go on. So I stayed with them at 7 until 7 when I already decided I had to go home to wait for the developments. And on my way home, I was ambushed in Wakwak.
This was on
that was the ambush.
This was the 21st.
That was in the evening of the actually 21st was
Saturday.
I think 21st was Friday or Friday, because 22nd was Saturday, I think.
So, na-ambush siya when he was heading home.
So, the ambush was not the reason for the declaration. What was the reason?
No, the ambush had nothing to do with the declaration of martial law. Whether there was that event or not, the martial law would have been declared and proclaimed. Wow. Because people do not remember that there was a very strong communist current in the country at the time. We were the second target of communism in Asia. The first one was Indonesia, and they failed. IDIT was executed in Indonesia earlier than what happened in the Philippines. And we were having a problem with the rapid build-up of the strength of the Communist Party headed by Jose Maria Sison. In fact, if you remember, they even established a commune in
UP.
in UP,
Yes.
headed by Erickson Bacolinaw.
Yes.
And
yes.
there was a killing there. There was they closed UP, and President Lopez could not do anything about it.
Tama.
So that primarily it was the communist push that was the basis for the declaration.
Yes. How old are you then? Because you do not remember that even
No.
there was a time when they sealed the south the highway between Manila and Calamba and Los Baños.
Sinara nila.
Yeah, I was too young.
They wanted to blockade Manila, and it took us several days to reopen the highway to allow supplies of food to come into Manila.
Was there supposed to be a particular length of time for martial law period? Was there an intention?
Well, actually, our initial plan was to maintain martial law only up to the next election. But finally, President Marcos decided, because we thought that we could control this whole situation for during that period, but we were not able to do it. So we finally prolonged it.
Okay. So,
And that is why we thwarted the takeover of the Communist Party in the Philippines.
but
Because
yeah.
Sison was supported by Communist International.
Yes, we that's clear even now. Pero it lasted until 1981. Diba?
Well, yes, because in the meantime, a constitution was adopted
Yes.
in 1973. And then we were installing a parliamentary system which we had no experience at all.
Yes.
And it took time to adjust. That's why in the beginning we established the interim Batasan Pambansa. If you remember, to an election in 1978.
Tama. Yung
Between
assembly.
73 and 78, there was an ad hoc Batasan that helped us in drafting all the decrees that we are still using until today.
Yes,
And
sir.
then in 1978, we finally set up the interim Batasan Pambansa.
Yes.
And finally in 1984, we set up the formal Batasan.
Batasang pambansa.
And before what was your basis for, because martial law doesn't appear in the old constitution, in the 1935 constitution. Martial law does not appear in either the 1935 or 1973, tama ba? Constitutions.
Merong
Was it in the 73 constitution?
Trixie,
Yes, sir.
read again.
Yes, sir. So
1935
73.
Constitution. In case of invasion, insurrection, or rebellion, or imminent danger of thereof, the President may suspend the writ of habeas corpus or place the country under martial law.
This is the 87, sir?
1873.
That is the 1935 Constitution. Second, read Barcelona versus Baker. That was the leading case
Yes, sir.
on martial law in the Philippines.
Sir, that's required reading.
It was decided before the 1935 Constitution.
I see.
And in case of martial, the declaration of martial law is a prerogative of the president, and no one can interfere with it, not even the Supreme Court or Congress.
Yes, basically, wala namang masyadong nagbago sa sa
So
tatlong
1735,
constitutions.
73, and then in 1987, it was limited. Did you have a say in the 1987 version?
It was diluted in 1987.
Yes.
May mga review
But
ng
it was retained in the 1973 Constitution, although at that point in time, the doctrine of Barcelona
Yes.
versus Baker was modified in another case by the Supreme Court.
Wow. And it's well, we of course know that in Haveliana, the declaration was upheld.
Ano yun?
In the
Sa-
Haveliana case.
In the Haveliana case, Haveliana versus Executive Secretary, we know that it was upheld.
Yes, but
Yes.
there was a modification.
Yes. Could you explain, sir, the modification by the
I
Supreme
cannot
Court and why?
remember now.
Ang
I
haba
cannot
kasi.
remember anymore.
So, ano daw?
Hindi na niya maalala masyado. Ang haba kasi ng
It's
Haveliana.
okay. Oh, kasi it's required reading in law school, but it's an entire volume of the Supreme Court
ganyan
reports
ganyan
annotated.
kakapal.
So,
Ang Haveliana.
If you want to study it, you better start with Barcelona versus Baker.
yes,
That was a doctrine. That was that case, if I remember correctly, was decided by the Philippine Supreme Court, composed of many American jurists,
the early colonial Supreme
Filipino
Court.
and American jurists.
Yes.
Halo
Nandun pa
sila.
sina Yes, sir. But post-martial law, after the declaration of martial law, a lot, right now, yung history po kasi natin, it seems that it appears that martial law period was a very cruel and dark period in our history.
Come on. Come on.
We need your take on this for balance, Senator.
That is silly, my God. And everybody was demonstrating in the streets. There was freedom of the press. Nobody was jailed except those that were known to be supporters of the rebellion. And you cannot deny that there was an ongoing rebellion, and you cannot deny that they had a united front. Until today, that united front, the National and the NDF,
Yes.
National Democratic Front, that is the united front that they're using, where they embrace the church, the educational institutions,
Totoo yan,
students, labor, farmers, fishermen, drivers, etc.
Yes. But was there martial law that was declared before the Marcos martial law?
Yes,
In the
that is the
Philippines?
Barcelona versus
The Barcelona.
Barcelona.
Sino po yung nag-declare noon na senator?
Governor General.
American.
History.
Oh.
American.
Ano pa? Early colonial.
Okay. So we had an experience of martial law before Marcos. It was not the first time application of the martial law. Okay.
The Barcelona versus Baker, they could arrest you anytime.
What did you think were the most welcome changes? In the early years of martial law, the changes are very radical. First, Congress was padlocked. And the president, yes.
Do you know the existence of state universities in the country that propelled an expanded educational system in the country and provided people in the rural areas a university education?
Yes, sir.
That was martial law.
This was,
Delays of irrigation canals all over the country, that was martial law. The Marcos Highway from Aparri all the way to Zamboanga, that was martial law. Marami. Even all the things that you are enjoying today, those were the product of martial law. What is the product of the post-Marcos presidencies? They are still using the decrees that we prepared during martial law.
That's
Tama.
true.
Oh.
That's true. Even with the enactment of the family code, the child and youth welfare code.
People have been distorting the history of the country. Marcos did this country something worthwhile. And they want to erase that because they want to become the martyrs and heroes. They have the animated busts all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Their names are plastered in some institutions of the country.
Like the airport.
Yes. How do you feel about it? Just as an aside, Senator, how do you feel about the airport? And do you think it should be renamed?
Yes, we should go back. It should be Maya.
Yeah.
Metro Manila International Airport.
Oh, something neutral.
MIA.
Oh,
Yes.
something
agreed.
neutral.
Okay.
In fact, why should it be named Manila International Airport when it is in Pasay?
Oh,
That is
Pasay
true.
International Airport.
Pasay,
tama.
Parañaque.
Hmm.
In some parts of it are in Parañaque. So
Tama.
I agree. What about the how do you feel also, because you were defense minister at the time of the institution of martial law.
DOJ siya muna. DOJ siya.
Yeah.
Department of
You know, guys. People do not realize that I never wanted to be in government. If I wanted to be in the government, I would have been in government earlier than Marcos, because Magsaysay went to our home in Maysilo, Malabon,
Yes, sir.
to ask my father for me to join his regime in 1953. I was just graduating from UP along with Rafael Salas. No? But I declined to the offer of Magsaysay. I wanted to be out and engaged in law practice until I was drawn into the government by the regime of President Marcos, because he had a problem in my province in Cagayan about the delegates of Nacionalista Party. And there was a commitment by that delegation to support Pelaez. But I was the only one who did not express his commitment to Pelaez. And that's why I had to be used to bring back the delegates of Cagayan into the fold of President Marcos when he was vying for nomination as a candidate of the Nacionalista Party for president. And when he won, I did not want to go see him again, but he continued to bring me back. And I finally agreed to serve him for 1 year, but that 1 year extends to 20 years.
But you served in several capacities, diba, sir? You were also in customs?
I was Undersecretary of Finance. I was chairman of the Philippine National Bank. I served as acting Secretary of Finance, chairman of the Monetary Board, name it.
Wow.
I became a troubleshooter.
Right.
You were that one. And then you also became
I
the
became acting
DOJ?
commissioner of customs,
Yes.
acting commissioner of insurance. I prepared with the deputy commissioner then. She was a woman. The present insurance code.
And then the DOJ. Were you also with the? You were also Secretary of Justice?
Yeah, I was Secretary of Justice. I prosecuted Banjo Laurel.
Ooh.
Yun pala.
I need to look that up.
And I sent to jail a mayor of Makati.
Oo, mayor.
And then finally became the youngest defense secretary at the time that
Because
Marcos
President,
appointed you.
because nobody knew how to run martial law. I studied it for President Marcos.
Kaya wala na, by default pala.
So this was by default.
By default.
And could you compare? Yes, sir.
You don't realize. That is why the people who are claiming to be victims of martial law did not file a case in the Philippines because they had no case.
Yeah.
They had no case. And until now, they have not filed any case against me for any killing or any atrocity. My God.
Yeah.
Exactly. They went to the US to file all these cases.
And the only case that was filed is for a civil suit.
Torts. Oh, torts.
Diba? It's a tort suit rather than
Ano yun?
the only thing they could file is a civil suit abroad in the courts of Hawaii.
Yeah, because they were aided by other people who are anti-Marcos abroad.
Yung mga nagtakbuhan din
What
doon.
about the so-called Marcos wealth and the PCGG and what are they looking for?
That is like King Solomon mine.
Okay, mythical pala, mythical.
Mythical, okay. But what about these accounts that were recovered abroad, like the Swiss accounts? Some of them have already been recovered.
That Swiss account
Yes, sir.
that they're talking about, if they will only go dig the history, in 1975, Nixon was the president of the U.S.
Yes.
We had a gold
Deposit.
gold bullions in Fort Knox as our backup for our currency because we were under the gold standard at the time. All gold in the Philippines, by the way, at that time, had to go to the government at $35 per troy ounce. In 1975, France wanted to convert their dollars, their fiat dollars, into gold. And what Nixon did was to deregulate gold.
Okay.
In order not to serve the wishes of France. So the gold standard was knocked out, and gold was free in the gold market. President Marcos and Licaro sold the central bank gold bullions at $40 per ounce. $70 per ounce, I think. Now,
mas mahal pa.
My recollection is that there was a Virgin Island corporation that bought the gold of the Philippines, and that gold went up to $804 in the course of time. I think that was the Swiss account that we are talking about.
So hindi pala yun ninakaw.
So these are not like
Hindi
personal
ninakaw ni Marcos yan.
It was he invested it. Na pinamahal pa nga niya, $35 per ounce.
Alam mo, sa totoo lang, si Marcos never dipped his fingers in the budget of the Philippine government.
Okay.
Swiss account.
So what about why then all of these accounts? Where are these accounts of large scale thievery of the government funds coming from?
Well, the victors, they decide policy. They decide who is to survive and who will perish. Diba?
Yes, but well, that might also explain why one of the first Cory appointments was to the National Historical Institute. So, yes, sir. But you were also part of the early Cory cabinet.
Yeah, I was.
Yes, sir.
I was a part only in name.
Why in name?
Because after the revolution, when they double-crossed us, we agreed to form a revolutionary government composed of 5 cabinet members. That was in the evening of February 24. We did not know that President Marcos was leaving already, was giving up. I was suggested to them that we might have a protracted struggle, so we have to form a revolutionary government to manage we were already contemplating a civil war, no? So I talked to Jimmy Ungping. that we will organize a cabinet composed of 5 cabinet members. Cory will be the president, Doy will be the vice president, Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Secretary of Justice, Secretary of Finance, Secretary of Local Government, Secretary of Defense. We will take defense. You have all the 4 positions. The following morning, Saturday, they went to Club Filipino. They filled all the cabinet positions already.
Yet they still gave you your position. How long before it became untenable? And what caused you to break away?
That is why we started taking violent action with that government earlier. And that is why I had to be kicked out. And later on, I had to be jailed. Oh.
Wow. You survived that attempt. Well, how many times were you charged under the Cory government?
I was charged by Cory with inexistent criminal case.
This is the
rebellion complex with
murder.
Catering. Catering. Kasama si Cardinal Sinjal sa conspiracy na yan.
Sa catering.
yung nagmimisa na pari dito sa bahay, nung gabi na yon, si Father Dagsaan, pinalayas nila para hindi mag-testify in my favor na walang sundalo dito sa aking bahay.
Oh no.
They spirited him out of the country through the airstrip in Lingayen. Oh. Pagkatapos, I was jailed by them. And I was the lone opposition in the Senate.
Yes.
And they're complaining about the Lima now. They did it to me.
Yeah. Senator...
Then I was also jailed by Gloria. Because they thought that I was responsible for EDSA 3. Then I was jailed again
by Noy
Pinoy. The son of Cory. Until now, I still have the case for something that I never did. I don't need to steal money to survive in this world.
Yeah. We're wondering that. That's why it's always fascinating to talk to you. Senator, we're just going to go into break, but we'll be right back with you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're just going to go. Mag-break lang po muna tayo, mabilis lang, tapos balik tayo sa inyo. Yes, sir? Mag-break lang po sandali.
Sige po.
Okay, salamat.
Commercial break.
Tambayan sa DWIZ. Muli nating balikan. Tambayan sa DWIZ.
Babalik ang Tambayan and we're interviewing former Senator Juan Ponce Enrile on matters relating to the declaration of martial law September 21, 1972. Senator, are you still there?
Yes, andito pa po si Senator. Wait lang po. Okay po.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, sir. So this the rebellion complexed with catering. What was this case about?
Well, they charged me with rebellion complex with murder.
Yes.
That used to be a part of our criminal law. I mean, that was turned down by the Supreme Court later on.
Yes.
But I learned later on that there was a meeting in Malacanang, and they said, we'll charge him with anything, just put him in jail. Let him go to court. That was their attitude. Those people never respected due process.
I see. But
and some of those who conspired to do that were very close to me, and they're still in government today.
Yes, we know. The Secretary of Justice at the time was Secretary Drilon, now Senator Drilon, correct?
Who?
Drilon. Wasn't it? Wasn't he the DOJ?
I do not want to name names. You named him.
Sorry, but it's history. Your case is studied in law school. Because of the rebellion complexed with murder, and the Supreme Court upheld your position that it doesn't exist.
Dapat homicide lang.
That is why I called it complex with catering, because the soldiers that they claimed to be here were caterers. There was somebody who was celebrating his birthday here at home, and we had a mass. Mm-hmm. And Father Dagsaan was the one saying the mass. And then because he knew what went on, and he, in fact, submitted an affidavit to that effect, so that he cannot testify in my favor, and it will knock out the case of Tory and make her face blue. So they had to spirit him out of the country with the aid of everybody and with the consent of Cardinal Sin.
What was this about? What was the original case about? What were you supposed to have done that they were claiming?
There was a coup that happened.
Was this 1989?
1989.
Yeah.
Oh, where they were almost toppled down. It's not with because of the Air Force of the United States. Mm. Oh, they were overflying here in my house.
Yes.
With the F-16.
Well, we understand why you were were left out of the cabinet, but why did they want to go through these great lengths to put you in jail? Huh? Why did they want you in jail? What didn't they like about you?
Because they did not want. They did not. They knew that they cannot have their way. If I was in their cabinet, I was telling them that what they were doing was silly.
It's not even illegal, but silly.
Silly lang. Okay. So,
my first cabinet meeting in Malacanang, I was seated on the right of Tory, and Joy Laurel was seated on her left side. That's how important I was to them in the beginning. So, my God, there was no decision. They said, ikaw naman, Tito. Ano sinasabi mo? O Ernie, ikaw. O ikaw, Raul. O ikaw si... Oh my God.
So wala talaga may alam.
Akala ko magaling.
So another, it was like when...
Huwag na natin pag-usapan yun. Patay na yun.
Kasi parang student council na naman. No wonder.
High school.
What's your one takeaway over the events of 86 during the revolution? During the revolution, sir.
What is your takeaway?
What is the one thing that you want people to remember about your role in 1986?
Nothing. I do not want them to remember anything. you know, people do not realize we did not do that to gain popularity. We gambled our lives to prevent this country from becoming to be ruled by military, because General Ver formed a junta to take over from President Marcos. That was the purpose of the round, to thwart him. The junta was composed of General Ver, General Ramas, General Picture, General Admiral Alejandro, and then Commodore Ochoco of Coast Guard.
Yan pala.
And who told me about it secretly? Edna Camcam.
The girlfriend of General Ver. Correct.
And their plan was to assassinate me immediately once they take over.
why you?
Why me? Because they knew that they could not control me, that I will never go along with that.
So you have never been one to be controlled by presidents, I understand. I mean, Cory couldn't control you.
No, nobody was able to control me when I was in government, only President Marcos. President Marcos became a collateral damage.
What was in him that well, you say you could not be controlled by anybody but him. What was it that you saw in him?
Because I never clung to my position. I was in fact wanting to get out. I went to President Marcos. You can ask for General Ramos. This was July of 1985. I submitted my resignation to him. I want out. And he asked me why I wanted to be out. And I said, you are no longer in control of the country. You are controlled by your Chief of Staff, General Ver. He is the Chief of Staff, Director General of NISA. She is the head of your security battalion. His son is his son Irwin is the Chief of Staff of your security battalion. His son Wirlo is in charge of Armor Division. The son Rexor is handling the close insecurity of the president. I said, what do you have, Mr. President? You can check with Ramos. I was in Malacanang. I was being heard by the people of Ver in Malacanang. And he said, Johnny, we started this together and let's finish it together. So I had to finish it by being a rebel.
What do you think is your greatest contribution to Philippine law?
I never thought about thought about those things.
Well, I was thinking about law. More like doctrinally, sir. Like in any law, policy, or jurisprudence that you have helped establish. Which
Trixie,
one? Yes, sir.
Trixie, I passed through this life without thinking of being glorified. Let young people in the future study the history, the real history of this country, and if perchance they will remember me, I will probably say thank you out there.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yes. One last, sir, you wrote a book, but it's already out of print. Is there any chance of a second round of printing?
Well, you better ask ABS-CBN.
Oh my
They're
God.
the publishers.
Inaway namin eh.
Inaway namin yung ABS eh.
Okay. But you own the copyright. Wouldn't you be able to do a second round?
No more. Let it be a scarce resource for people to look for it.
I'm certainly looking for it.
Mamahal yan.
Eh.
Magmamahal yan.
No, the irony, sir, is that I bought one for somebody, for a friend of mine, tapos hindi ako nakabili ng para sa akin. I was wondering. But one last, we know that your legacy is something that we're going to have to look for ourselves. Pero if there was something that you wanted to correct about what people think of the Marcos years, what would it be?
Ram. That regime in a more peaceful time will get its real desert, because it did a lot of good for this country. It saved us from being a dictatorship of the proletariat. It saved us from being ruled by a junta. At least we are still free today. Even if we are wrangling with each other, we are free.
And on that note, thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Ulitin po namin. Thank you very, very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Happy birthday sa ating
Sa
lahat sa martial law babies na
for all
pinanganak
the
sa
martial
araw
law
na to.
babies who are listening to this,
Happy
I
birthday
bet
sa
you
inyo
didn't
lahat.
know that. I bet you didn't know.
Ako, 1975 ako pinanganak so wala pa akong kamuang-muang talaga nung dito sa 1972 na to. Wala
This is, I think, my third or fourth interview with Senator Enrile.
At
Ang dami
may bago pa rin.
Ang dami pa.
May bago
mga
pa rin.
bago pa akong naririnig. Hindi pa rin. Kumbaga, we need to talk to this guy more often because there's just so much there. And, nagdi-diminish yung mga eyewitnesses, yung mga front row seat people to history. Madalas kasi yung ating kasaysayan ay sinusulat ng mga tao using secondary sources, not primary ones.
Kasi ayaw nilang kausapin yung primary ones because kontrapartido.
Oo, yung mga ganyan. Pero ako, as much as we can,
let's talk to the primary sources.
Primary sources, people who went through them. So, yung mga nakikinig, kausapin nyo yung mga magulang ninyo,
tanungin
mga
nyo
grandparents
kung totoo bang
ninyo.
mangyayari itong mga to.
Martial law, ha? For those who have parents or grandparents who went through the war, ask them about their stories because this is how history is made. We build up based on the stories of individual histories. Tsaka yung mga ganyan, yung mga viewpoints from the people who actually experienced it.
Don't be afraid of being branded revisionists.
Yes.
Because if it is the truth, it is the basis of your wanting to change history, then it is a revisionist for the better. Ngayon, if you want to hold on to a false history, then you are the problem and not the solution. So, huwag kayong matakot na tawagin nga, you are revisionist, ganyan-ganyan. What is wrong with revising a wrong history? Diba? So, okay lang yan. Magtanong-tanong tayo, and yes, tama yan. Ask the primary sources, kahit na kontrapartido sila.
Yes.
Kahit sila yung kalaban natin noon. Sila ang kausapin natin dahil sila yung nandun, hindi tayo.
Correct.
Wala tayong alam doon sa nangyayari sa kanila noong panahon yan.
Masyado kasing mabigat yung reliance ng mga sources doon sa mga pagsusulat ng recent history natin. Doon sa, well, of course, doon sa mga nanalo, pero doon sa isang particular viewpoint. Halimbawa, maraming libro na sinusulat tungkol doon sa underground movements, doon sa so highly romanticized.
Yes, and the way I understand the Communist Party and the Communist Revolution movement, talagang romanticized. Na I would even cry reading about priests na namatay, na mga mag-asawa na namatay dahil sa revolution, and then I realized, hold on, what made you go into that decision to do all of these things? Now, when I am looking at it now and reading Marx and reading Engels and everyone in between, like Mao and Lenin, it's really a stupid revolution. It's a completely stupid one. Hindi ko maintindihan why we are still doing this until now. Wala akong pakialam kung mga magulang ko ay sumali sa inyo dyan. Right now, I think that your revolution is so stupid.
May mga kamag-anak ako na nag-underground talaga. Sa Bicol pa sila na destino. And then we had that on the one hand. And then my mother was good friends with the political opposition nung panahon ni Marcos. And then my father was in the military. I'm so confused.
Yeah.
It's enough for to establish schizophrenia.
But we have to think of it on our own sometime. And when I started thinking about it, so completely stupid. It will not win. It cannot win. I can start a better revolution than Joe Masison's revolution. And mine would probably win.
So, ang natin din, kumbaga, it's not enough na pinakikinggan natin itong mga to on our own. And, right, even if you're writing just on a microblog like Facebook or on a blog that you set up, these are sources para makikita ng future generations yung tunay na picture. Ganun naman talaga ang history. We're always rewriting history as the facts come back to light, as our priorities also change. Diba? There is a time when Marcos said one of the most important periods daw in Philippine history was the Philippine Revolution. And tama naman siya kasi this was the birth of the Republic. Pero ang nangyayari sa kakulangan ng oras ng pag-aaral, nakakalimutan din natin pag-aralan yung ibang mga kasing hahalaga at kasing bigat din ang impact sa ating bansa. Halimbawa, World War II. Kulang ang
meron pa tayong hindi
dito.
nakakausap. Yung mga nag-tridor, yung mga nagsuot ng bag sa ulo.
Ang mga
hindi pa natin sila nakakausap. What the hell were they thinking? Why they did that?
At saka
But
yung kakulangan, halimbawa, ng pagkakaintindi natin kung bakit naging politiko yung ibang mga
Traidor.
Makapili, yung mga collaborators.
Hindi natin alam kung anong nangyari doon.
Nakakaintindi na nung una, di ba, ang collaborator dapat binabaril yan. Pinapatayan dahil tinaydor ang bayan.
So, paano nangyari na sila na ngayon na naghari-harian, sila na may-ari ng malaking asyenda,
marami
all
sa
that
mga
stuff.
Pangalan ng ating mga dating politiko, among them, Cojuangco and Aquino, na nag-collaborate doon sa Japanese government or were officials in the Japanese puppet government.
But hindi natin alam ang storya nila. Surely there is a story there why they became thieves like that.
Yung survival.
Di ba?
Pero,
But we had to hear it from them. Noy, buhay ka pa eh. Kwento mo.
Kwento mo.
Bakit ganyan kayo?
Tsaka, meron pa kasi it's already documented history na binago nila ng binago nung pagkatapos ng pagkapanalo ng forces, ng allied forces after the war, pagkapanalo nila, para hindi makulong yung mga collaborators, binago nila ng binago yung definition ng collaborator.
At sinunog yung mga records.
Umabot dun sa point na wala talagang pwedeng ikulong for collaborating with the Japanese government.
There is a story
which
there.
Otherwise would have been treason.
There is a story there.
Espionage, punishable by death. Ganun din po ang nangyayari din with that's why I like talking to Senator Enrile. Kasi he's such a colorful and on the surface complicated character. Pero pag siya kausap mo, ang linaw
ng reasoning niya about his actions.
At saka yung counterweight niya dun sa pagkakaalam natin sa mga pangyayari nung panahon ng martial law, panahon ng Cory government, ang laki ng span niya. Tapos even before, yung mga less problematic period for us, yung mga panahon ni na Magsaysay, well, he was already around, di ba? He
was already out. Graduating daw law school, sabi niya.
Ano siya, 54?
Alin?
Ito yung klase ng UP na
malaki. Ito yung sikat
ito yung
klase
the class the stars fell on yata or older siya. Yung klase ni na Joker Arroyo yun.
Kabatch nila yan. Magkakabatch sila ni Ninoy Aquino, I think.
Ninoy did not finish law school.
Hindi nag-law yun talaga.
Hindi siya nag-law.
Magkakabatch sila dyan sa UP. That is why magkakabrad yan silang dalawa, I think.
Hindi.
That's the reason.
Si Ninoy Upsilon.
Upsilon yan silang dalawa.
Upsilon?
Si Marcos at saka si Ninoy.
Kasi
pero I think nauna yan sila kay nauna yan sila kay Enrile. Si Enrile is younger. I suppose.
Yeah, Enrile is younger than Marcos.
And Ninoy sa UP.
Ano ba?
Oo. Siyempre, mas matanda talaga yung dalawa sa kanya.
Pero yun nga, so it's always good to talk to people like Enrile. Siguro one of these days interviewin natin si Dr. Laya.
Kasi Marcos din yan.
Mga members of the cabinet of Marcos who provide us with perspective of the Marcos years.
Because I didn't really agree with the Marcos government at that time when it's happening. Even if I was born a little later than the declaration of martial law, I did not agree with it. Kasi nasa Mindanao kami at kami ang nakakaramdam ng talagang kalukuhan ng militar doon. Okay, and even if it is not true that si Marcos ang dahilan kung bakit ganun ang ugali ng militar sa Mindanao, siya ang presidente. So, I didn't agree with the Marcos government. But then again, maybe this is the government that we need to talk about because we didn't know it. Because we just presumed that because everything happening here in Mindanao is wrong and therefore martial law is wrong. Yun na siguro.
I spent a lot of my childhood also in Mindanao pero iba yung perspective ko nasa kampo kami.
Kami nasa Mindanao at nakikita talaga namin mga farmers pinapatay talaga at iniiwan na lang sa kalsada. And I felt that, and I hated it about the martial law.
But every government has its successes. On the other hand, kumbaga, hindi tayo mag-swing all the way from the left to the right, di ba? Leftist perspective kasi yung Cory government and the way history was written after that. Hindi rin naman natin sasabihin that everything that Marcos did was right because of course, as a human being, he would have his own failings. He would have his own, failure to control the excesses of a very brutal military that had to do also with brutal insurgencies all over the country. So, more on a historical perspective, bukas sa Tambayan, when we come back, may karambola din po bukas ng 8 ng umaga. Maraming salamat sa pagsubaybay sa amin ngayong araw na ito. And kung nakikinig sana si Senator Enrile, maraming salamat. This is not the last time we're going to be interviewing you, sir, because you're always a joy to interview.
Fight, sir.
Ang Tabayanan. Susunod na programa, Pilipinas ngayon na, kasama si Yusek Robert Rivera. See you tomorrow on Karambola.
Tambayan sa DWIZ.